Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. We have special guests and a cool announcement here today. Spectre basses are on board here at Sweetwater. We've got John Stipple from Spectre, and our friend Doug Wimbish is back. Great to see you guys.
Great to be here.
Nice to
Glad
be here,
to have
man.
you come in. You were giving a presentation for the sales engineers this morning.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it went really well. We're really excited to have Spectre as part of the Sweetwater family.
And we're excited to have you guys here as well. And thanks for taking time to sit down with us
Sure.
today.
Of course.
So the Spectre brand has a long history back to about 1976, right?
Yeah. So Stuart started the company in '76. He was building guitars at first, just trying to find something for himself to play, and then he was actually part of a really cool scene back in the '70s in Brooklyn. It was there was a woodworking co-op in Park Slope, Brooklyn, which is now like hipster central. But back
Right.
then it was just a Brooklyn neighborhood, and he was in there working, and there was a couple other guys in there, and Ned Steinberger was actually there. And Ned at the time had never designed an instrument. He was a furniture crafter. He had spent some years in New York City learning some furniture design and stuff. And Stuart had his first year of designing, was trying to find his footing and trying to find his shape. And one day, if you talk to Ned or Stuart, they just kind of met up over lunch and said, Ned had some ideas that maybe Stuart could apply to his design, and that's how the collaboration started.
Right,
So
right.
really 1977 is when you see the Spectre shape, the silhouette really come to fruition.
Right. And Doug, when did you make contact with Stuart and start using the basses?
Well, it started in 1980. I was out with the Sugar Hill Gang, and the first time I saw a Spectre bass was the bassist from Cameo, Aaron Mills, was playing one of his Brooklyn-made Spectre basses. And I saw it, and I heard it, and I was, wow, this is amazing. Fast forward, I'm working with Jeff Beck, and did a tour with him. After the tour, Jeff was off to do a solo record with Mick Jagger, a second solo record, and they were auditioning bass players. So I ended up Jeff threw me into the hat and said, to Mick, and recommended me, and I ended up auditioning, getting the gig. Fast forward, we're at SIR Studios, and we are about to rehearse, and some of the guys from Kramer came by with some guitars for Jeff to check out, kind of checked them out and kept going. And then my friend Pierre de Beaupart was like, well, Dougie's kind of interested in his bass player. He's kind of interested in Spectre. So I was able to get introduced thanks to Jeff. And fast forward that, I got a loaner bass, and then I had the opportunity of going to Neptune, New Jersey, and that's when I first met Stuart.
Okay.
And we basically went and started to design what is now my signature Doug Wimbish bass.
Right.
That's how it started.
Which this is your bass.
That's
here,
it.
right?
That's the one that Stuart designed. The neck shape is kind of like contour to what I like. I like it a little bit thinner, and the body's actually a little bit thinner. So this is a one-of-a-kind bass that Stuart made. I was very fortunate to get that, and that's how it started.
Right. Very cool. And of course, that body shape is so iconic. Sure. It's instantly recognizable. Ned Steinberger, such a creative guy. The obviously all of his stuff as well, but the body shape that he came up with. I mean, just the comfort factor of that body shape is really something.
Absolutely, and it's really the first of its kind. I mean, at that time in '77, having a contoured radius instrument was kind of brand new, especially for bass players. They didn't have much going on. I mean, obviously Fender was doing their thing, Music Man. As far as boutique level craftsmanship, you have Alembic, and they're doing their thing on the West Coast. But as far as really pushing the bass design forward, it was all happening right there. In addition to Ned and Stuart working on it, one of Stuart's earliest apprentices was Vinny Federa, so he was learning there. He was there as well, So you have these three guys that went on to make huge impacts in the musical instrument world, all kind of starting in the same spot. So it's a really great story.
Really crazy, yeah. I have to tell you guys a story. So I read that Spectre actually did OEM manufacturing of guitar necks for DiMarzio. back in the day. I have one of those necks on
Wow.
a parts guitar that I built when I was a sophomore in high school. I didn't know that that's
Yeah.
probably where it came from, but actually is probably a
That would have
Spectre
been the
neck.
same workshop because DiMarzio at that time was also developing the pickups for Stewart. So if you see those first few years of NS, Spectre production, all DiMarzio pickups. I think Larry DiMarzio's first 5-string pickup was in a Spectre bass. That would have been like 1980.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
much
it's
great
all
stuff came
happening.
out of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Really crazy the way that all kind of coalesced into,
Yeah,
into
Doug
that
said it
one
really well before. It was like you have your Leo Fender era bolt-on, obviously hugely revolutionary, and then as far as the modern active bass, it really all started there with Stewart and his team.
Yeah, really crazy. So let's fast forward to modern day. You've got the Euro line, you've got the Performer line, a variety of different lines of Spectre basses. Can you take us through the features of some of those lines?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we've been manufacturing the Euro series for over 20 years now. Stewart in his time in the early 90s set up a workshop over in the Czech Republic with some really fine craftsmen over there. So we do a true production version of the NS style bass over there in the Euro line. And we do a couple different varieties. New for 2019, we have the LT range, which is a same shape, but it's weight relieved. We have some new pickups in there from Bartolini. We have a custom dark glass circuit in there, some new colors. So that's one way we kind of just keeping the line a little bit fresh. And we also do an NS style in a bolt-on construction. So that's like the Euro bolt here, this blue one here.
Okay.
So same shape, that instantly recognizable silhouette that you're talking about, but we do bolt-on construction. That's featuring some really nice Aguilar electronics in there as well. An example of a Euro would be Doug's signature right here. So that's Doug's real bass, and then we have the production version made in our Czech shop there as well.
Doesn't have quite as many miles on it as this one does.
Not as many miles.
So what year did you get this bass?
1987.
1987. And how many gigs do you suppose you played on that?
A lot.
Yeah.
Do the math. 32 years ago. Couple of thousand. I don't know. Couple of thousand.
It's in great shape.
Couple of thousand.
You know, when
It's
you
still
think
hanging in
of the
there.
miles on the bass, it's in great shape.
Since I got this bass, we've never left each other.
Right.
It's 32 years of pure love.
Right.
So it's been.
And is
great.
that do you attribute that to the sound of it, the feel of it, or what is the attraction?
Well, I think John said it best. It's just, let's look at it. Just the shape of that bass was just gorgeous. Quite sexy, actually, and I've never seen anything like that.
Right.
Fits the body perfectly, so it's a different vibe as compared to like a Fender or something else that's kind of slabbed out. You actually it actually set quite well in your belly a little bit, But that being said, it was the comfort of it, holding it was very comfortable, but the sound, the shape of the note, the distinct tonality that this bass produces. The electronics are second to none. I really enjoyed hearing that bass for the first time because being a studio musician, I could hear studio quality preamps coming out of that bass. So but the real test of time was going in the studio and letting other engineers hear it, and actually, telling me, this bass is great. It's got great clean signal, no buzzing. Because back in the days, with passive instruments, when I'd play in New York City, you'd have to face away from the Empire State Building no matter where you were. It's an Empire State Building here, buzz, okay, it's going okay, press play,
Right.
Alligator clip to the bridge, to the board, so there were a lot of things you had to do. But this bass, and I think Mick said it best, when I first got a Spectre bass and I was in the studio with Mick, and I had a previous bass before, and he was like, Dougie, what is that? That's a great sounding bass.
Mm-hmm.
So coming from Mick himself, and that was like, thank you. It was a great honor to be able to have Mick go, I'm loving that bass.
Right.
I'm loving the sound. And it became a part of my, now my career moved forward in the Spectre era.
Right.
And so so it's all of the above, All my friends liked it, I liked it, sounds great, could use it at the gigs, very durable, has a very distinct sound. And the key thing about Spectre basses is the versatility.
Mm-hmm.
I can go into a rock gig, a funk gig, a jazz gig, and so on and so forth, and it still was able to give me the tone and us the tone for the client.
Right.
So that's really key. It's very diverse.
Right. Awesome. John, we talked about the Euro production line, but there's also a more affordable line of Spectres.
Yeah. So we have two other affordable lines. We have the Performer series, which you mentioned earlier, something that we are reintroducing into the market. It's a $399 price point. So that's a classic Spectre shape. It's bolt-on. We're using some passive electronics in there, but a really, really awesome, great way for you players to get acquainted with Spectre. You know, typically Spectre has been known as a high-end brand. I mean, and it's for good reason, you know, but we wanted to extend the Spectre experience to players of all levels, or, you know, all playing styles. You know, and the Performer is one way we do that. We do also offer a mid-price point line of bases called the Legend series, and those are similar. They're bolt-on and also available in a neck through. It's a classic Spectre design at a much more affordable price point. So those are coming in around like $899 to $1,000, depending on, you know, how many strings you want and which packages. But we try to keep them as competitive as possible. We use proprietary electronics and everything. Those circuits that Doug was talking about that really give him his sound that's present throughout the line. Yeah, just trying to, again, expand the Spectre offering and get more basses into more players' hands.
Right. And there's also a line of acoustic basses now.
Yeah, we do a timber series. It's something that, you know, when we first started talking to Stuart about, you know, where we're going to take the brand in the future, and this was a few years ago, and we said, how about an acoustic bass? You know, have you ever thought about doing that? So that's something that he spent a little bit of time developing, and now we have in production. So that's great. I mean, the idea there was to get something that, you know, a lot of times with an acoustic bass, you sit down with an acoustic guitar player, you can't hear the bass. You know, it's just those low frequencies are much harder to project.
Sure.
So he went to the drawing board and did some pretty interesting things. He actually used a bolt-on neck with a big neck block because he thinks, you know, and he was right, that projects the sound a lot further than you would on a conventional, you know, set neck acoustic guitar design.
Right.
Also got a much bigger solid top than a typical acoustic instrument would have. So yeah, it's another way to get a Spectre instrument into another player's hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, Doug, one of the attractions with the Spectre basses is, of course, the beautiful visual appeal of the woods, but also the tone wood aspect of those. Are there specific tone woods that you requested when you built this guitar and that have ended up in your signature?
No, I left it up to Stuart.
Yeah.
You know, at that particular time, I'm the player, and when I first picked up a Spectre, it just sounded great right out the box. I'm like, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. So when I went to the factory and saw Stuart, he asked me what I wanted. I said, well, just make something that you feel is going to be, you're comfortable with, and if I can get the neck right, I'm going to be comfortable. So it was as simple as that.
Right.
So, I mean, just right out the box, the bass sounded just great. So
don't touch it.
I left it like that.
Yeah, exactly. John, what is the source for all these incredible tone woods that Spectre uses? Do you have someone who goes out and combs the world? Or
yeah, actually, it's funny. We just came back from a buying trip a couple weeks ago. So we were up in the Pacific Northwest on the Olympic Peninsula, and that's where a lot of this gorgeous quilted maple comes from. And that's what we use predominantly throughout the line, but specifically in the USA stuff and the Euro stuff. These, you know, this gorgeous tone wood that you see on these basses, that's mostly quilted maple. Right. So we were out there with our buddy JJ out there who's supplying that stuff for us. So yeah, we're doing that. We're experimenting with some other tone woods. In the USA, we're actually using some reclaimed redwood that's been water cured. That's really nice and lightweight and still provides like a nice mid-rangey punch. In the Euro series, we use quilted maple on the top, but we use alder on the back. Similar tonal properties, but a little bit lighter, a little less expensive as well, you know, because getting solid quilted maple, it's a little bit harder and harder to do these days.
Sure.
But yeah, we're always experimenting, you know, with new stuff too. On the bolt-ons, we're using roasted maple for the first time. So that's something that we were really happy with so far on the seeing those roll out of production. Alder bodies, yeah, all kinds of different stuff. In the Legend Classic series, we're using some walnut burl tops for
those are gorgeous.
Yeah.
And some poplar burl as well.
Yeah, exactly. Poplar burl. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely have our formula with the maple and the alder and the ash, but we like to experiment with other stuff as well.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, all kinds of different tonal options for bass players too, or looking for
Yeah.
a particular
Yeah.
thing or a particular weight.
Yeah, and so much of the Spectre sound is really in that neck through design as well. And we're always using 3-piece North American maple necks for that, no matter where it's made in the world. You know, so that's really the foundation of everything right there.
Right. Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for coming in and taking time to sit down with us here today. We're thrilled to have this iconic brand here at Sweetwater and happy to be partnering with you guys. And Doug, I understand we're going to be getting some bass demos from you a little bit later
Yes,
today,
that's
so we're
right.
looking forward to always a pleasure to hear you play.
Always
So
a pleasure.
just a real pleasure to have you guys here. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Come back soon.
Yeah.
Always glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me for Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. Be sure to tune in next time. We'll have more guitars, more amps, more effects. We'll be making lots of music. I'm Mitch Gallagher.